Hello, welcome to Tales from the Bridge. My name is Tristan.
My name is Sam.
I am Kevin.
My name is James.
And this is the 100th episode.
Woo-hoo!
We forgot the reverb.
Oh, yeah.
Dun, dun.
Episode.
Maybe we'll add that. Yeah, 100 episodes, guys.
How did that happen?
Yeah, it really did show up fast, right? Like it's
Yes.
But then I was looking through our old episode list, and I think there's more episodes that I've forgotten that we did than I can remember doing. You know.
Yeah, but that's also because we're getting older, too.
This is
true.
true.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of episodes every couple weeks, 1 week sometimes, every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that speaks to finding a lot of interviewees and
Yeah.
getting them in here.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
It's really consistent. Well done. Yeah.
Well, we love what we're doing, I think. If we didn't enjoy this, we wouldn't be doing it. So, yeah. We've got a lot to cover in this episode. We're going to talk about kind of the best of or our favorite moments.
We're gonna do some location shout-outs.
And we're going to talk about some of our most noteworthy authors as well, those that we have interviewed, I think.
Outstanding guests or people we've spoken to that impress us or were fun to look back on, I guess. What else?
And then we're just going to also talk a little bit, go on a tangent and talk about our favorite film and or television series within the genres since 2021, since we got rolling on the podcast.
And of course, we got to talk about favorite science fiction, science fact stories.
Yes.
Because every monthly episode, Kevin brings one, and it's always neat to hear what's the latest in science. So that'll be fun to talk about.
And I'm looking forward to some trivia, right? Have we got some trivia questions?
We will have some trivia questions.
All right. Well, we better now because I didn't bring any.
We've got lots of material to choose from here.
Okay.
So, and just so everyone knows, we are all together in the same room, and we're all looking at each other awkwardly, wondering what happens next instead of on a screen.
That's right. It's the thing about doing this online is that if you feel awkward, you get to look away and it's socially acceptable, like because we all do Zoom meetings all day, and it's like, oh no, they're just looking at their other screen, and it's okay when really you're trying to hide in plain sight.
You're on mute. No,
And you can
it's
mute.
good. I'm fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice meeting you guys.
For the
Yes.
first time ever.
Yes, nice
Yes.
meeting you guys. No.
It's not actually the first time ever.
No, we get together all the time.
Yeah.
We go out for drinks and food, and we talk. We have gatherings every once in a while where we get invited to each other's houses and trash the place and
Yeah. Yeah.
party too hard.
Yeah.
Typically.
The Ragers.
Like good nerds we are.
Kegs.
Yes.
Yeah. But this is the second time we've gone in person, so it's super special for us to do this. I really enjoy it.
Me too. And we have snacks, so that's awesome.
We got snacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it.
All right. Let's make our way over to the bridge. Shout out to some locations because
Yeah.
we have listeners in dozens and dozens of countries all over the world, which is really amazing. And places I wouldn't have guessed that we have listeners. And there are literally hundreds of cities and towns and municipalities, locations all over the world that I just would not have known. So we're going to just shout out a whole bunch of places right now. Let's do it.
Okay. So I think we did this a little while ago. We did a shout out to Waukesha, Michigan.
Waukesha.
And I still can't pronounce it right, and we were correctly called out on this, and so we took another pass through the stats list on Buzzsprout, and a couple that stood out for me was like Missoula, Montana. Missoula, yeah. That's actually where David Lynch is from, and a lot of great stories based there. The art scene's great. My friend Hank is from Missoula. She was born there. Yeah, really want to go there one day. So, well,
Whoever
Hank's-
you are, we're coming for you.
Maybe
Yeah.
it's Hank.
yeah, maybe.
Well, Hank's in Guelph now.
Oh, okay.
All right.
And we have a lot of listeners in Guelph, so we're not going to... And we're on radio in Guelph at College Radio as well on CFRU. So if you listen that way, thank you as well.
I keep noticing a listener popping up in Oslo County, Norway, which is kind of cool.
Amazing.
I don't know anything about. I wish I had a story to share about that, but I don't. Maybe our listener will write in and tell us a little bit about themselves and what they're doing out there, and probably enjoying similar weather to us. The other one was Lake Stevens, Washington. I have an old Navy buddy who lives out there, so I was curious if when I see that pop up, if that's him or not. I don't know. Anyway, so those are the ones that jumped out at me, and I have a trip coming up to Japan, and I keep noticing Sakai Osaka
Ooh,
coming
nice.
up. So I mean, I think that's pretty cool.
It is.
Anyways, let us know if you hear your location shouted out in this segment.
I got a couple here.
Give us a ring, Kevin. Yeah, who you
Yeah,
got?
we got somebody in Beaverton, Oregon, Tacoma, Washington. Yep. We've got somebody in Kuala Lumpur. At least one, maybe more. Some Portland folk. Phoenix, Arizona. I saw Hamburg in Germany. So yeah, all of you folk, way to go with listening to us.
I've actually been to Kuala Lumpur.
Have you?
Yeah, many years ago, back when I was in the Navy, and it's lovely.
I'll bet it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm going to pin off a bunch here. Tokyo, Waynesboro, Virginia, Canterbury, Barnsley, Glendale, California, Edmond, Oklahoma, Snohomish, Washington. Oh, we'll definitely get someone correcting us on that one. Kennesaw, Georgia, Budapest. That's cool.
There's a Zagreb too.
Nice. Eastbourne, East Sussex. Morrow, Talmadge, Ohio. Fort Kent, Buckhurst, Hill, Essex. Mito, Abaraki.
That's definitely pronounced wrong.
Yeah, we're definitely going to
Ibaraki?
hear from that listener.
I gotta look
Mito
that up.
Ibaraki. Let us know.
Mhm.
Egstgeest, South Holland.
Oh dear.
Oegstgeest. No, really bad. Wow.
You're taking a big gamble going to the Dutch pronunciations there.
Yeah,
and I
that's
think
probably a
if we
bad
have-
idea.
No disrespect intended if we totally butcher the pronunciation of your lovely home town or country. Just send in a book request and we'll be forced to read it at your behest.
And review it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
I'm going to name a few more here. Shatin, Malmo, Edinburgh. I'll be over there this summer. Come
Right.
to see you.
World
Brent, Reading, but that's Reading, California. Rockford, Illinois. Ashburn, Virginia. Aurora, Ontario, not too far from us. Brisbane, Queensland, of course. Milwaukee, Victoria, BC. We love the island out there a little while ago. Beautiful out there. Ottawa. Who's in Ottawa? Probably my buddy. We'll see.
Maybe it's
Rob,
that guy
is that you?
JT.
Salem, Oregon. Prescott, Arizona. Hoofddorp, North Holland.
Again.
Hoofddorp. I think I got that one.
Yeah.
Hoofddorp,
All right. We'll find
North
out.
Holland. Many people in Holland, thank you for listening. Dorchester, Massachusetts. Malaga. No idea where that is, but Malaga. That sounds kind of cool. Stratford, Ontario. Anchorage, Alaska. Milford, Connecticut. Exeter, Ontario. We could just keep going. It's hard. I mean,
There's a whole lot of spots we got listeners, so it's neat to see and it's neat to call them out.
Global reach.
Yeah.
Nice.
The internet is an amazing thing. Thanks
Yes.
everybody for listening.
yeah, thank you everyone for listening. It's much appreciated. And I think we're going to talk about what we're going to offer something kind of fun for anyone, whether we named your location or not. James, what do you
Yeah.
think?
We've just been noodling around this idea that, you know, the four of us plus Miranda, we know a fair bit, but there's only so much we can read, and so we were thinking, why not have some guest reviewers? If there's any of you in our audience that have a particular book or an author or some sci-fi or fantasy subject you want to talk about, let us know. We might hold some auditions and have some guests on now and then just to spice things up and create a little more engagement and, hear what you have to say. Because, again, we can only read so much and we'd love to hear what else is out there.
And it's super easy to meet on a video call online and chat with like-minded nerdy people. You can tell us what books you thought we read that we liked or ones that you didn't. And yeah, that could be fun.
Well, there's so many people out there who have so much knowledge about different authors and about different books, and we would love to tap into that subject matter expertise and have you on the show if you feel like you would like to do such a thing. I think it would be a great opportunity.
and not just expertise, but passion
Yeah,
too,
right on,
right?
yeah.
Like there are so many people, and that's one of the things I love about these genres and being, the fandom is that people are passionate, ourselves included. So that will be something cool to tap into, as you say, as well.
So how do we do that? We're gonna look for emails from people, right?
Yeah, or maybe we'll figure that out. Maybe details to come either on our page or on a future episode. But stand by for details.
Yeah.
So what book did I read that stood out? I'm going to a recent book, and I think I'm alone in this, but Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel might have been my favorite book of the season.
Really? And that was James's first pick?
No, it wasn't. Actually.
Oh no, that was
Kevin, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
that
that
was
was
mine.
your pick,
That was
and
mine,
but
yeah.
that was your first that you joined us.
That was
with.
my first that I joined, and I remember that episode as well too. Because at first I was a little lukewarm, but the deeper I got into the book, I'm like, oh, okay, I see where they're going, and I agreed with you, Sam. That was a really solid piece and something that really came together as a whole. Once you got to the end, or once I got to the end and saw where the author was going with it, I also really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, I think it's just it's sci, and I love this about sci-fi is it can be fantastically heavy-handed, and when it's done well, it's done really well. But it's nice when there's a nice, subtle, elegant execution of the genre, and I think Emily St. John Mandel absolutely represented that. What can be done with that with this book? So that's absolutely my pick. I mean, I went from that to jumping back into The Expanse, right? So I went right back into big ships and all that stuff. But I have to say, I really appreciated the break, and I'm looking forward to her next work.
Very cool.
That was good. I really liked it as well. If we're talking about this season, for me, it was Stephen Baxter's book that was most memorable. That's I hate to say favorite because my favorite depends on the day, but Stephen Baxter's Thousand Earths was most memorable for me. I really enjoyed the writing style, most of it, but I think more about the stuff that happened in that book for some reason than the other books this season. But the one that I think that I enjoyed the most was actually not one of our books, but it was one that I read in preparation for one of our interviews, which was with Richard Morgan, and that was the Altered Carbon. Because I had seen the first season of the Netflix series Altered Carbon, which was, of course, written by Richard K. Morgan. And in preparation for that interview, I read the book, and the book is awesome. It's cyberpunk style. It's right in my wheelhouse. Very much one of these dark. It's a bit of a whodunit. The protagonist is very likable, at least for me. And he has some really interesting ideas around consciousness uploading and resleeving bodies, which he talks about very well in Altered Carbon. So it's actually not a book that we read, but it was one that I read, and it relates to our show.
And I agree with you, Kevin, that even though I struggled a little bit with the Baxter book, I have to agree, or I have to admit, I also agree that it has come back. I've thought about it quite a bit since time has passed,
Yeah.
and just some of the themes and that idea of the. I mean, I'm still feeling a little bit let down in terms of explanations, but maybe I should just let that go. But it was a good one. But my favorite ones, I think, being the new kid on the block here on the podcast, I'm going to go with the obvious choice because it was my first experience, but The Expanse. Reading Leviathan Wakes for the first time, it was such a joyride. It was just such a pleasant surprise to come across something like that was, quote unquote grounded, but then still had all of the fun and all of the characters and all of the adventure of that kind of book and space opera kind of work. But still feel realistic. So yeah, I was really delighted to read that one, and I can't wait to someday make my way through the rest of them. But again, Sam, as my sort of B pick was Sea of Tranquility as well too, just for all the reasons we just talked about. But yeah, gosh, there have been so many good ones. But for me, yeah, man, The Expanse really did it for me.
I always got your back when it comes to The Expanse, man. I'm listening to Tiamat's Wrath right now in the car on my way to work, and so good.
So
I think that's my next one. I need 2 more, and then I'm done.
Tiamat's Wrath.
And then whatever the last one.
I have-
Leviathan Falls.
I'm on. That's right. That's where I'm at right now. I need to start that one.
Oh, nice.
It'll be a sad day when we finish up. So we've talked about our favorites this season. Can we talk about our favorites of all time on the show? Can anybody pick their favorites? And if we, while you think I think I can say mine.
Can I guess?
Yeah,
Is it one of your own picks?
I believe so.
Alistair Reynolds?
It's not. It's not it. Although I love
Peter
Alistair
Hamilton?
Reynolds. I thought about that one. Did we read Seven Eves? Did we read Seven Eves?
No, the only Stevenson we did was Snow Crash, and it was one of the very first episodes we did.
Then I'm completely off. Then my favorite is not my favorite. So yes, you're right. Peter F. Hamilton would be my favorite.
It is.
Yep.
We've
Salvation.
Got a hardcover copy of that
Yep.
here.
That would be my favorite of all the ones that we've read. Thinking about the most memorable books that I've read, I think more about Seven Eves than I think about any other book that I've read. But certainly Peter F. Hamilton's Salvation series, that would be my favorite of all the books that we've read on the show.
Yeah. Yeah, those are good. I've got a copy of We Are Legion, We Are Bob in front of me here. I have not finished the series, and I look forward to doing that.
This is the Dennis E. Taylor.
Yeah, the Dennis E. Taylor. He was on the show a little while back. Those are just easy reads. They're so fun. I really enjoyed that one. You guys did mention the Baxter. I was just getting into Baxter in the last year, so I even read Rift, and I like that one a lot as well. But I'm going to do a real far call back to before we started recording for this podcast, and we were just hanging out.
Can I guess?
Yeah.
Is it a Peter Watts book?
Yeah, it's right here.
Is it Blindsight?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
All right.
right here we have a hardcover, first edition, first print of Peter Watts's. This is the second copy of this book that I've had. I found this at a thrift store for $2, and it's actually very rare. So I've had 2 copies of that on hardcover now. Yeah, I'm so glad that Kevin introduced us to Peter Watts. Sam wishes he didn't, but
It's true. It's true. It's the worst thing that's ever happened.
but Peter's been on the show multiple times, and I look forward to getting him back again.
We've gone out for beer with him.
Yeah.
It's hard to bash Peter Watts, you know.
Yeah.
He's a lot of fun.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun.
I make fun. I jest.
We brought him to Comic-Con one year.
Yeah.
Fan
Yeah.
Expo. We brought him to Fan Expo
Fan
one
Expo,
time.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he
And-
cleared the room. It was fantastic.
Well, not really. There was the people with little kids left, but
Yeah.
there was still 40 people there that were like, okay, I'll
Yeah.
His topic was a
I'm
little
gonna
dark.
die.
That's all.
Yeah, he was a
Yeah.
he challenged the audience and yeah.
And I think we talk about it a lot. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you'll know Peter Watts always comes up in conversation because he's an interesting guy, and we know we have many listeners that also love Peter Watts and his work.
He's memorable, and his ideas are phenomenal, and his
Yes.
content is well researched.
Yes, very much so. So Blindsight, I'm going to say, is a book I'm happy to have been introduced to, and it comes up in conversation often. So Peter Watts, and I can even, I'll end there and say he was one of my favorite guests I have on the show, because he even did a trivia episode where he was super fun to play along with. But yeah, Peter Watts and Blindsight, and those really stand out for me.
Okay. What about you guys?
I'm going to go back a little bit too and bring us back to Ancestral Night by Elizabeth Bear. I thought that's
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
That was one of those books, sort of space opera-y, where she talks about these really cool ideas of right-minding, and that I thought was really interesting, and the idea of how we can improve ourselves with technology and adjusting the levels of in our brains. And anyways, I'm doing a poor job of summarizing it. I wasn't expecting to talk about it, but yeah. So I will just say, if you want to check out the White Space novels, Ancestral Night is a lovely start and a fantastic book. And I'm a big fan of Elizabeth Bear.
For sure.
sort of in the same-ish territory as perhaps Becky Chambers or even in our Katie Martin. I think elements of, but she really stands out on her own, where she takes. Where she'll take the reader to a place that I hadn't seen before or thought of or seen executed in that way. And so it does feel like this truly original piece, but where the stakes aren't necessarily, like, it's not necessarily cozy sci-fi, which is something we've been talking a little bit about lately, but kind of it's just a thoughtful set of books. So yeah,
And those are some of those are the best, right? The ones that take you a little bit out of your comfort zone, make you think a little bit about yourself, or and her concept, as you said, the tweaking of your neurochemistry. It's almost like a psychology sci-fi, right? There are ideas related to our neurochemistry that you don't hear explicitly talked about. How do we improve our mental health through the help of benevolent AI, right? That was I thought, and we interviewed her, and I remember that conversation being particularly noteworthy as well.
If I had to pick one of my top 3 interviews of all time on the show, it would be Elizabeth Bear.
Yeah,
I think we should get Elizabeth back on the show for sure.
Yeah, I'd love to
see what she's up to, because she was a good to chat with for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Anyways, that's my pick.
Again, being the new kid on the show, I can reference a few people that have been really memorable so far. Again, we just spoke with Kate Trefry from Stranger Things, and she was a ton of fun, a character and a real insight into the makings of that show, which is sort of the best part about this podcast, by the way, is just the because it's kind of a homemade behind-the-scenes special features disc of all of these things that we love. So let's keep doing it. Rebecca Thorne the other day was super fun as well. But then and even my first book, I think it was, on the show with Drew Hayden Taylor, the Canadian Indigenous author who had his collection of sci-fi Indigenous short stories called Take Us to Your Chief. Just another perspective, it was a really interesting way to view this genre, and what we digest and how we digest it, from a literary perspective. It was really interesting. And then in recent history, I've been sort of listening to you guys do this podcast since the beginning, and there's been no shortage of really great guests and interviews, but I do think, I think back to your Kim Stanley Robinson show, which was really great. The Andy Weir show was great. Alex Harrow, who I didn't know before, was a great interview as well, too. So, all of those for me. This is a category I refuse to pick just one favorite, because there's been a lot of fun and insightful people, both before and after I joined you guys. So awesome.
Yeah. Well, for sure, the interviews are that is, in terms of noteworthy interviews. There were a ton. I remember, in particular, Cory Doctorow. There's a gentleman you really have to be paying attention to follow conversation with. His mind just works a mile a minute, and he's thinking on a different level. I like to think that I'm not a slow-witted dumb guy, but nothing like talking to Cory Doctorow to realize, oh, actually, I'm slow-witted and dumb.
That's true.
Yeah. But no, that was really neat to talk to him, and he's a prolific author and has all sorts of really interesting ideas.
Well, you mentioned Andy Weir. I think what I liked about that interview was he still seemed a little bit surprised by his success. I think it was him and Hugh Howey both were like, "Can you believe this? This is like totally happening.
They're paying us a lot of money here."
Yeah. So I think that's always sort of cool to see. And you mentioned Alex E. Harrow, definitely, and I just thought she was super cool. You just meet someone who's effortlessly cool, and she's certainly a creative for whom it just seems so natural to come up with great concepts, and knowing how to share them. She really just makes it look easy, though she's putting in the work. She just manages it with grace. And so I think the great thing about these interviews when we do connect with these people is for us, it's fun. I mean, there's a time out of your week where you're talking to someone really interesting, and you're going to come away with that conversation with a new insight or someone else's insight on something that you can only really get by having a chat with them and getting them to open up a little bit, and you can really come away with interesting stuff, and you just see how other people are going about their lives and their creative pursuits, and that's been, I think, the most rewarding part for me personally from having these conversations.
Mm-hmm. Well, and our conversation with Greg Bear shortly before he passed was very wonderful, that we had that opportunity to be able to bring him onto the show. He was talking about his health appointments at the time, but he was so spry and just quick-witted. It was quite a privilege to have him on the show, so close to his passing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was wonderful. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you guys named a lot of the authors that I really enjoyed. I have done some of the trivia episodes, and they're outside of the book world, but I gotta say they have been super fun to be a part of. Sean Gunn did a trivia episode with us, and I don't know if you know Sean Gunn from Guardians of the Galaxy and Gilmore Girls, which is where he's more well known in my house. But that was so fun to hang out with him, and he was so willing to play the game, and he enjoyed himself as well. Dominic Monaghan played one with us as well. And then, of course, we had Shauna McGuire and Cory Doctorow do one of the trivias. Peter Watts did a trivia. And Joseph Marcel from Fresh Prince, which seems outside of the realm of what should be on our show, but I don't really care. I wanted to hang out with them.
Yeah.
And he was great. And then one of my favorite interviews was, again, outside the realm of books, but for film, Phil Tippett. I grew up watching that guy and being amazed by his ability to create creatures and special effects for Star Wars. Like, I had that VHS. I don't know where it came from, if my dad got it from a garage sale or he rented it and just kept it. No idea. But we had this making of Star Wars, and it changed my idea of what film was. It was like, oh, this is how you make a movie. And I would have been 6, 7 years old. So I saw Phil then, and he was a big part of it because he made creatures, and he was asked to go beyond his normal puppet making skills and puppeteering. And of course, his latest film, or the one film that he's made that's taken him 20 years or more, is Mad God, which I'm also a big fan of. It's grotesque, it's horrific, but it's beautiful and it's thought-provoking. And Phil Tippett is all those things as well. So I love talking to Phil, and I'd love to chat with him again because he's such an interesting person, and I love talking to artists because they're weird, and he's a weird guy, but he's not so weird. But I don't mean to be that as to make him sound too out
weird
there, but we're all weird in our way. But man, I love weird stuff, and Mad God is weird, and I love people that create weird stuff. So I really liked my time with Phil Tippett, and then more recently, an episode that's coming out shortly, just after this one, the 100th, is Robert Silverberg. Really enjoyed that. He was, he told us stories. His memory is so good. He told us stories from 1953.
He's an 89-year-old gentleman whose memory is better than mine, for sure.
It was, so I hope people that are listening to this when it comes out, check out that Robert Silverberg. But Bob, as we call him, he was great.
He was,
and I hope to meet him this summer at the Worldcon, because I said, you want to? If I see you, I'm going to give you a high five or something. He said, no, buy me a beer.
That's right. Well, he's been to every Hugo Awards since 1953, except for one during COVID.
One or two, I think.
Yeah, one or two during COVID. Yeah. So he's been around since the very beginning, right? And he won his first Hugo Award in 1953.
Nope. It was
56. 56, yeah. Right.
His first one he went to as an 18-year-old with 18-year-old Harlan Ellison.
Right, that's
the two of them went together. What a story.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, that's a great episode.
Yes, really enjoyed that one too. Sorry I went on too long with that.
No.
It's great. Yeah, that I just to jump in, even just as an aside, apart the Phil Tippett stuff, same. Grew up watching his work without even knowing whose work it was, and then when I heard the episode, before I had joined you guys, yeah, it was a really, really good get and interesting interview with him, and he's his own man. He really is, and it was great.
So I wouldn't mind talking about like what was like an outstanding. I wouldn't mind talking about like what's an outstanding moment that when you like there was you're talking with someone, you're like, oh, and like there's that every now and again that sort of golden moment comes out in a conversation, and I'm going to start with talking with Rike Aoki and discovering that she speaks as beautifully as she writes. It really stood out for me. I just feel like her editor must have the easiest gig in the publishing industry. Like it was, you're just speaking with someone who's just kind of, it just perfectly encapsulates an idea and just puts it out there without any effort. Anyways, that was one of those moments that really just sort of like, that still sticks with me.
Her brain just creates prose, quality prose.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you?
I have a couple.
Sorry.
So.
This can't be on CFRU now.
That's right.
This episode brought to you by.
I have a really memorable moment that really sticks with me, and it was when we were interviewing Peter Watts, I believe, for the first time, and he was talking about group consciousness, and he has this idea that he's written about and that he's played with. And it really hit home. I had this forehead smack aha moment when he said, if we could link our brains together using Neuralink or some other type of technology, at what point would we stop saying we with our brains, and would we start saying I, that we're a group consciousness, a hive mind, a collective mind? And when he first said that, I thought, well, I don't know if that's going to happen. But then he went into an explanation as to why fairly quickly it's likely that we would move to a singular thinking of self. I think he was talking about the two hemispheres of the brain and the corpus callosum being a very low bandwidth connection between the two halves. Anyway, he had a very eloquent and good justification for why a hive mind could become a single entity fairly quickly if we have very high capacity Neuralink style connections between our brains. And that was one of the coolest moments where I said, holy crap, what a phenomenal conversation we're having here, is when Peter Watts came up with that.
Cool. A moment for me was recent when talking to Kate Tree Fry. I'm not that big of a Stranger Things fan. I watched the first one. I appreciate it, but I just don't watch too much TV. But just the fact that she was in the Duffer Brothers office, and this is only a week or two ago, and they're filming episode 3, and she's currently writing the final episode of the entire series. That was just cool.
That was really interesting.
That's just cool.
And when she was speaking, you could hear the emotions coming out in her voice about that. Yeah. And it really kind of impacted her interview, I think.
Yeah, agreed. And the fact that we all know that that's not an easy gig. Like, yes, it's Hollywood and it is TV. It's only, no one is saving a life or curing a disease, but it is hard work. And she's dedicated a lot of her life to that one particular show. And absolutely to see her processing the end of that journey was pretty cool, actually. And I will be I hope we can catch up with her again at some point down the road once she has done her unicorn movie or the other one that she spoke about in Alaska, the postpartum horror movie that she wanted to do.
Yes.
Sounds creepy as hell, but fascinating, you know. So
and then also an old person rom-com.
Yes.
Did I want like a seniors rom-com or something, and
she's got all sorts of interesting ideas.
She's a creative person. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah,
for sure.
You know what was another noteworthy moment for me was when we were interviewing Adrian Tchaikovsky, just in terms of the quality writers that you were talking about, Sam. He said, I think we were talking about how many books he has in the queue currently with his publisher. At that time, I think there were 3 books ready to go. They just weren't launching them because they want to bring them out in succession. And and we asked him about his editing process. What's the process of how long does it take you to get a chapter done? And he says, well, I just write it. There's not usually much editing. And like, there's another gentleman who knows how to do his business and can be prolific and can get quantity and quality out, right? Just like Robert Silverberg, when he was writing 1 million words a year back in the late 1950s and early 60s, and all of his stuff was being published, and it was being published under 57 different pen names because he was so prolific, and it was quality work as well as quantity. So Adrian Tchaikovsky, Robert Silverberg, these folks are real writers, and they do an amazing job.
A little tidbit for anyone that has ever read a short story by Alexander Blade: it could be written by many different authors. That's right, eh? Because Robert Silverberg was saying that he read a short story by Alexander Blade and was like, "Oh, this is a good short story," and then found out that other authors who had too much to publish would write under that name. So one day, Robert Silverberg himself wrote a short story that was published under the name Alexander Blade. So if you read a short story by Alexander Blade, it could have been written by Isaac Asimov or Bradbury, any of them.
Robert
many
Silverberg.
Purnell, so many authors that he mentioned that was writing back then. Just a little tidbit for
Yeah,
you.
so many pieces of information from him through his career, eh?
Yeah. Science fiction, science fact. What do you got for us this week, Kevin?
I don't know. I didn't come prepared.
It's okay. It's okay.
Well, I mean, we were talking about like what was our favorite and most interesting science fiction, science fact story that Kevin has brought, and our listeners should know that Kevin is a professor and shows up to class prepared. This is
Except for today.
This is a person who, except for today, you get a break. This is one of my favorite parts of the show. I love when we open with this. I think Kevin does a really excellent job, and it's always interesting. It's always really compelling and thought out. And there's many times we've been in an interview with a sort of hard science oriented author or scientist, and it's Kevin coming in with the best questions and challenging ideas, and we've been in interviews and I've got nothing to say. I'm run dry, and it's this sort of super brilliant scientist, and it's Kevin who saves the day. It's Kevin who comes in and gives this person a question that just lights them up like a light bulb. You know, they brighten up, and they are totally re-engaged in the interview, and then we just get out of Kevin's way and let him carry us home. And so, but one of my favorite stories that he brought up was recently, and this is, I'm going to go to, because Kevin's looking embarrassed now. Sorry, Kevin.
It's all right.
Is self-replicating robots. I thought that was really cool.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, and of course Dennis E. Taylor talks about the self-replicating robots with the von Neumann machines and the uploading of an intelligent consciousness into a machine that can self-replicate and then go around the universe. That's the way, if we actually want to colonize the universe, is how we would do it. We wouldn't do it with our monkey meat sacks that we all walk around in, our bags of mostly water. It'll be a von Neumann machine. We're going to upload our consciousness. We're going to take a Richard K. Morgan style stack, and we're going to put it into a computer, and we're going to send it out there like one of the Pioneer probes, and except it's going to go a whole lot faster. And the self-replication creates redundancy, and yeah, I'm looking forward to our future AI selves that are uploaded. Although, to be clear, I will never upload my consciousness, as we've talked about in this class in this before.
Nice.
Did I just say class?
You did.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
Perfect.
In
If
this
you want to
podcast,
speak, guys, put your hands up.
Raise your hands.
Raise your hand.
Yes, teach.
you guys can just talk. No, seriously though, it'll be that's how we do it. Yeah, but I'm not going to upload my consciousness because somebody could subvert my consciousness and can enslave me, and I do not want that enslavement.
It's
Right?
the weirdest thing to think about. It's scary. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's putting life support's expensive.
Yep.
Like we require food and water and all that stuff. And if you don't have to worry about that, it becomes a lot more attainable.
Yeah, it's so true. There's this technology gap. We'll get there, you know. Whether we should or not, that's a different question.
Do you have a favorite science fiction sci-fi?
Kind of, yeah. They're all fascinating. Again, I agree that Kevin, you do really bring some great stuff, and it is a good balance for the fiction. But it was a recent one, and again, it was that debate between Mars or Venus. Which one do we go to? And again, I think we ended that discussion with, it's not going to be one or the other. It's if we're going to go, we got to do it all really to make it worthwhile. That's my opinion as a completely, non-scientific observer. But I thought that was a really interesting discussion. One I think we should continue, especially as we see the billionaires of our world continue their quest to be the first, So I'm looking forward to that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think before I joined the podcast, I think you guys did a segment on the 16 Psyche asteroid. Did you not?
Oh yeah, about hollowing it out and making it. Oh, that's right. We did talk about the amount of elements and natural resources that were inside of this asteroid that was potentially mineable.
Yeah. And it's something like quadrillions more pounds or dollars worth of gold on this one thing. And I had learned about it from a previous project as well, actually. And that's a perfect example, I think, of the kind of thing for, science fiction, science fact, because it totally feels like science fiction as well, that idea, because you can imagine as soon as the government gets their probes on it, there will be pirates and there will be, all sorts of other things. So,
well, it also creates an impetus for moving into the solar system that doesn't exist yet today. Right now, it's ideological or because of pure research, and apart from telecommunications, there isn't a big economic driver. But if there's one of these asteroids that's near to Earth and we can mine it, and more importantly, maybe we can process and smelt those off planet to help improve our environment, because this is the only place we can really live. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it seems like an absolutely sensible and logical way to go. If I guess the economics and the everything else lines up. But yeah, I'd be down for that.
Well, you know what was most noteworthy for me was, remember the one where we talked about how we could test to see if we were actually in a simulation? Remember there was that scientific paper that was published, a peer-reviewed journal, where a computer scientist and philosopher hypothesized that there were a series of steps that you could do to try to determine whether we were in a simulation, and if we were in a simulation, how we might be able to get out of it, and or to determine if we were in the base universe or not. And he had, it was all theoretical, but what interesting thought experiments. And I find myself looking for glitches in the matrix, like the cat that wanders past. Or one of his suggestions was to maybe try to overload the computing system by doing all sorts of things all at the same time on the planet to see if the computer that's simulating us can't handle it and crashes, which could actually be existential. So maybe it's actually a really bad idea.
Are we in the middle of that right now?
Maybe.
It kind of feels that way.
Yeah, it could be trying to crash the server.
Are we overloading the system right now?
Anyway, I thought that one was really neat.
Favorite film or TV series since 2021, if you want to go back that far?
Yeah. So I think we've all watched and talked about a few different things. This probably comes up all the time. There aren't very many TV shows that I watch into completion unless it's from the 70s. And I watch like the stuff that a lot of people would think was bad. Right now I'm going through Blake 7, if you've heard of that. It's a British television show from 78, 79, 80, 81 maybe. 4 seasons. I love that shit. Planet of the Apes, love it. Logan's Run, the TV series, love it. I love these 70s TV shows. So those are the really outstanding to me. Besides those, when it comes to film, there hasn't been much that's grabbed me. Dune was cool, but it's just not my thing, really. The Matrix Revolutions came out in 2021. I was excited for that, slightly disappointed looking back. I really do like that new Matrix movie. It's still missing a lot. It's not everything I ever hoped for, but I do like that there's a fourth Matrix movie. I thought it was a neat attempt. But there's not a whole lot of TV. Sandman, the TV show, was kind of cool, but yeah, there's not a whole lot for me that stands out in the last 3 years. We'd have to do the best of the 70s for me to input on this one, I think.
Okay. I have a couple. I watched I watched a lot of series, sci-fi series, but two noteworthy ones that I really enjoyed. First was Neil Stephenson's The Peripheral. That was done, I think that was on Apple TV, perhaps. That one was great. I really wish they had gone to a second season with that. I read the second book. I can't remember what it's called now, but the first season it set itself up nicely for a second season, and it never came to fruition, unfortunately. Presumably the viewership numbers weren't there, but the characters were likable. It was action-packed, really interesting concepts around science fiction and the use of direct neural connections for VR. And and it's a Neil Stephenson story, so it's very cool. The other one that I liked and watched all of it, and I'm very excited about the next season coming out, is Silo. Right? So the second season of Silo's coming out.
And we had Hugh on the show.
Yeah, Hugh Howey.
And he was wonderful. We'll get him back for sure. He was a great guest.
Interesting gentleman, very well rounded. He's he's a sailor and a bit of a philosopher and a
rich kid. Rich kid. I'll edit this out. Rich kid who's got a hot model wife who's published his own books, and they ended up selling millions. Okay,
he's doing okay.
But I do like. He's the kind of guy that you find at a hippie festival who's like, "Hey man, just life is good." Man, he's kind of that guy, but it's but born into the
There's a bit of privilege there.
I love him. I thought he was great.
Yeah. Anyway, those two are mine.
Silo. I watched the first couple episodes, and and that's what I do with so many shows. But I might go further because I did find that intriguing. It was cool.
Well, Hugh Howey was interviewed just, I think, maybe yesterday, and of course he's going to say this, but he said that the second season of Silo is the best thing he's ever watched. Could be a little self-serving, perhaps, but
and
I'm
also
sure it's
Beacon 23 is out. There's a new season of that too.
Yeah,
so
that's
this
right.
is happening. Actually, I think it's coming out right now, or maybe week by week. I'm not sure. I'm not really following that one, but
another
Beacon
series
23.
based on one of his books, eh? Hugh Howey,
It's funny, being of the era, Tristan, I totally get your love for the 70s and 80s as well too. But I also kind of feel like we are in a bit of a golden age right now too. Like, we're, if not a golden age, we have there is a bounty of stuff for people who like this kind of content. Because even if it's, maybe I'm just at the point where I have let go of the idea that I have to love everything. That if I enjoy something and I like it and it makes sense and it's clear that there's some artistic merit, then I'm good with it. Like, I'm just thinking about 2023, The Creator by Gareth Edwards. Again, have we seen AI stories before with robot children? Yes, we have. But I thought it was a really good stab at that genre and that kind of storyline. The cast was fantastic. The visual design was amazing.
And novel, right? I think that was fairly novel in how they did that.
Agreed. Yeah, exactly.
I think they had real scenes and they put the CG on top of the real scenes rather than using green screens, I think, in that one.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that, actually.
They apparently cut the costs of their graphics to a fraction, like 10% of the cost of doing green screen.
Wow. Well, good
And
for
is
them.
that just because the effects have got to that level now? So we're going to start seeing that everywhere?
I think we're going to see a lot more of that. Yeah, like if you think back on it, think of all the scenes of the mountains in the backgrounds, and it seems like it was in Malaysia or Thailand, and then you would see the ships layered in front of that, and I guess that's reversing the logic of computer graphics in a lot of movies.
Yeah, because if you, I'm pretty sure the new Disney TV shows like Mandalorian, they're all filmed on stages, and they're literally projecting, or not even projecting anymore. There's tiny little TVs all around that are creating the entire set, so the actors are actually on a soundstage. However, the set it's not a green screen anymore. It's it's visually there. So they see the walls, they see the doors. So this is different from what
This
you're
is
talking
different.
about with the
This
creative.
they shoot it on scene on it could be on a set, but it could also be in the real world. And then later on in post processing, they add all the CG. I guess it makes it harder to act to that if you don't know what you're acting to. But it's like Kate Treefry when she played the Demogorgon, right?
You have a stand-in.
Yeah, so she was the stand-in that I get that he was the one who killed Bob, or she was the one who killed Bob,
Yeah.
right? And that was
And I actually just rewatched that episode with my family, and it was terrifying, but kind of fun to know it was her arms,
Right.
in there. But and just to carry on too, I think, and I don't know if this is strictly sci-fi, and I had never played the game. But I thought The Last of Us was fantastic as well too. I don't know whether that's maybe more horror or whatnot. I think it's got some sci-fi elements, but again, casting, writing, conceptually super top notch. And Craig Mazin, is it Mazin? Craig Mazin, one of the showrunners on that, who did the Chernobyl series for HBO a few years back. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
yeah, that was excellent.
Holy smokes. Yeah, like that. And so this is the pedigree of the kind of people involved. And you know, Tristan, you already sort of opened the can of worms with mentioning The Mandalorian, but again, being a sort of an OG Star Wars fan, like, are all of the new series perfect? Maybe not, but man, some of them are amazing. You know, when we're seeing facets of that universe or that galaxy far, far away that we could have never imagined and that I could have never imagined. And, you know, is Andor the best example of Star Wars ever? I don't think so, but man, is it amazing.
I did watch all of that and loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so well, and I only say that, I'll qualify that because I think my Star Wars needs to have a bit of fun in it and a bit of optimism in it. And Andor is that dark side of the moon, if you will. There's no moon; it's a space station. But see, nerd. But again, it's just so the craftsmanship and the care that's taken to make shows like that are fantastic. And the Mandalorian, again, so much fun and these different facets. So I think we're in a great period for this stuff. I just hope it can survive the advent of AI,
Right.
And the creativity is not usurped by that.
Creativity being commoditized.
I'm glad you brought up The Last of Us, though. That was one that I forgot about almost. You know, like, that's how, you're right, we are in that golden age. Because if I can forget about a show like that I just watched recently and loved, because I kept finding new stuff that I loved, like Andor and Oshaka I liked as well. I was totally into it. I'm happy to sit down. I can watch them with my family, and I don't need it to be perfect. If you go back and watch the original Star Wars, nothing was perfect there either, right? Like, it's, in fact, the first Star Wars, like A New Hope, you look at it now, I mean, it didn't age perfectly, right? Like, it's you know,
Did?
Everything about it was perfect.
yeah, sorry, people, but
Someone cut his mic.
yeah,
That's a wrap.
I will always say The Expanse is the. So you're going to hear The Expanse a lot, and maybe people are tired of that, but I think The Expanse is probably the best. It's for me, it replaced Star Trek in terms of TV sci-fi. I think it's that good. Though Star Trek: Strange New Worlds has absolutely breathed new life into that.
I love that too.
Series,
Yes.
like, just fantastic. Someone mentioned Silo. Kevin, yeah, I love Silo. My daughter keeps asking, like, when's Silo coming back? Yeah. So, but it's not the only thing I watch. You know, if I could just branch out slightly, Blue Eye Samurai. We've talked about this a little bit. If you're into animation, like, I'm gonna rewatch that. That was just so good. It's an animated series on Netflix. I'm going to catch flack for this one, but I really enjoyed The Ones Who Live. Again, I'm a Walking Dead fan, and I was happy to go back to that world. I needed to know what was going on with Rick, so that answered that, and it was a lovely ending. And is it perfect? No, but it's, like, it's a cowboy and a samurai in the zombie apocalypse. Like, what isn't there to like, really? Anyway, so and on the subject of samurai, if you have a chance to watch Shogun, do yourself that favor. Like, it's on Disney Plus up here in Canada, and I just finished it, and I'm gonna rewatch it. Fantastic. But yeah, anyways,
Let's wrap things up with some we used to do way back. Maybe we'll start doing it again. We'll see what happens. But I want to let's each throw some trivia questions at each other. I think it's fun for us to play, but I also think it's fun for the listeners. Let's see if you can get these ones. So I'm going to throw one at you to start here. And this is, we're going back to 60s science fiction television. 60s science fiction film. In the original Planet of the Apes, and throughout the series, I guess, the astronauts do not work for NASA. What was the organization in which they traveled through space with? It wasn't NASA. What was
United Nations?
Nope.
No.
It was
I'm
a
guessing.
4-letter initialization, not an acronym, unless that's a word, but I don't think it is. Not NASA.
You got me. I don't know.
no idea.
Don't know.
ANSA.
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 What does it stand for?
Who cares?
I'll know the answer in a minute.
Okay.
Over to you.
Oh, it's a
Sorry.
play on NASA, I guess.
But yeah, you guys remember back in the 80s, I think even you couldn't use NASA.
I did.
If you were in
Really?
the TV, you couldn't use NASA. So I think it was maybe the mid-late 90s. I'm going to find the information on it now when you're going. But it wasn't until somewhat recently that NASA said, of course you can use our name in TV and movies. Why not? Yeah.
Okay.
Government agency, and now their footage is freely available too to documentary and news services. So
It should be.
Which
It's-
is it should
It's a
be.
government-owned project.
Taxpayer money, yeah. Okay, I brought a couple as well too here, and this one is a little bit relevant to the show. Maybe this is an easy one, but we'll see. What hit Netflix series was originally pitched as
Montauk.
I'm just going to say Stranger Things.
You are correct.
Really?
Stranger Things.
Oh, wow.
I actually and completely separately, I had heard that before, but I recently just was able to have a look at the original pitch package for Stranger Things, and it was called Montauk, and it's because there's this area in, I think it's New York State, Montauk, and there was all sorts of crazy government shenanigans back in the day in this area, and I guess the Duffers wrote it around this area and scientific experiments, and it was interesting to see their initial intentions, but things always change through development, and a lot of it is remarkably similar to what we see on the screen. So
Good
yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Okay. I got one if we're going around.
Shoot.
This is something that came out in one of our recent episodes. Do you guys remember the movie Bicentennial Man with Robin Williams in the early '90s? I believe it was based on a book by Isaac Asimov, or short story by Isaac Asimov. But the story is not actually based on. It was based on the novel, The Bicentennial Man, or the Positronic Man, I believe, is what the book was called.
Right.
But it wasn't actually written by Isaac Asimov, even though that's who gets the credit for it. It was written by somebody else. And I know that Tristan knows this one, but
Sam should too.
I don't.
He wasn't listening.
it was a gentleman by the name of Robert Silverberg, who we just had on the show, and he wrote he wrote that book while Isaac Asimov was at the end of life, while he was battling AIDS, unfortunately.
I thought that was Nightfall is what was written.
Nightfall was first. He did that. He
And then-
co-wrote that
okay.
with Isaac Asimov,
That's
and then Bicentennial Man he did while Isaac. So he never actually got to see the end of that book before he passed away.
Wow.
Huh.
Cool. Just a little bit of a throwback. ANSA stands for the American National Space Administration. We are told in the 2011 novel Conspiracy of the Planet of the Apes that ANSA was split from NASA in order to minimize the risk of communist infiltration into their highly experimental research.
Oh, interesting.
Of course it was.
Yeah,
Okay.
1968 is when that film came out, so
Crazy.
yeah.
All right, here's another one. I got one more, and this is going back. What was the title of the first Star Wars novel published after the release of the original
Splinter
film?
of the Mind's Eye.
Wow,
Whoa.
Tristan, just like
Macaroni.
that. Amazing.
That is one of, if not the only, Star Wars novel I've ever read. Even though
Really?
I have 200 of them, and I'm not joking, I have 200 Star Wars novels.
Wow.
That is one that I've read.
I remember reading it when it first came out as well too, and I obsessed over the cover, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
With a Vader
Vader.
kind of stalking over.
and this glowing crystal, which I think has evolved into other
Right.
story points throughout the series. But as a kid, when there was no other Star Wars stuff out there, that book was a lifeline.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that as far as I remember reading it and going, this definitely, there's nothing foreshadowing that Vader's his father.
no,
Right? There was it even
Wait, what?
contradicted
Is his
that.
father?
Yeah, spoiler.
Oh, okay.
Oh man.
It even contradicted that in a way. Like I think I remember reading it and thinking, wow, Vader hates Luke Skywalker.
your
Vader
memory is
wants
better
him
than
dead.
mine. I would have to read it again, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's an Alan Dean Foster who I would love to get on because of the amount of books he's written and
Yeah.
and he's adapted many film to book as well, right? Sorry to burn that one out so fast.
I don't. Well, everyone contributed a trivia question, but I'm not gonna. It's too bad. I didn't come prepared.
I'm looking at these thinking, can I get something out of these?
I started looking around the room. I was like, God damn, I gotta come up with something. I'm just not gonna.
Okay, I got one.
Okay.
Name 4 contemporary British science fiction authors.
Oh, okay.
I can do that, but I'll give you guys a chance.
I'm the new guy. You guys go ahead.
There's
only-
many right in front of us.
I know. I can only think of one. All right, Tristan. If you're sitting on the answer, hit
well,
it.
we
Hit
got
it, hit us
Stephen
with it.
Baxter.
Yep.
In front of us, we have Peter F. Hamilton, Alistair Reynolds, and then a fourth. Let's be creative here. Well, maybe not. Adrian Tchaikovsky.
Okay, good ones. Yep, absolutely.
We like the British authors, though.
Yeah.
There's many.
we had
good
Charlie
ones.
Strauss on the show as well.
Yeah, right.
Charlie as well. Yep.
He was great.
Would have been great to have Ian M. Banks. Of course, he's no longer contemporary because he's no longer with us.
Yeah.
But
And he's Scottish too.
yeah, it's true. He's Scottish. Yeah. Scottish is technically part of Britain.
Oh, we're
Depends on
getting-
the Scotsman.
We're
Okay.
getting mail
All right.
now.
Charlie
Oh.
Strauss would not like that.
No. All right. Sorry, Charlie.
Sorry, Scotland.
Mhm. But yes, all sorts of them, and they're the British Science Fiction Awards, the BFSAs, BSFAs. Great work there.
Okay, I got one more for you. Who is the main protagonist in Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir?
Ryan Gosling.
Yes.
That might be correct. Ryland Grace.
Oh, right, of course.
Hail Mary, full of grace. And do you remember the band in which there are Easter eggs? For
Beatles.
This
The
book?
Beatles. Yes.
And I'm not sure if I told you guys on the show, but I was chatting with Andy. I found all the Easter eggs and sent them, and I'm the first person to get them all.
So to be clear for the listeners, Tristan found a whole bunch of Easter eggs that all relate to the Beatles in the book Project Hail Mary, and Tristan mentioned it to Andy Weir when he was on the show, and so you're the only one who's found it
As far as I know, I'm the only one that found all 13
and has
studio
talked to
album
Andy
titles.
Weir about it. Wow,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, but we can't. I don't want to let it out. You know, like
Yeah, just
it's-
let it be.
Yeah.
let it be.
Oh.
Wow.
Nice.
We'll let other people have time to figure that one out. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sticking with us for 100 episodes.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you, folks.
We really appreciate all of you. It wouldn't be fun if there wasn't people listening, and you are listening, and that's why we keep doing it. We really appreciate it.
for sure. Absolutely.
And if it's taken this long to ask you to rate the show, leave us a review, now's the time to do it. Let us know what you think of the show, review, because you've listened for, maybe an hour now. And if you have, let us know what you think of the show. It helps us out, and we'd love to hear from you.
And if there's anybody else who you think might be interested in this type of content, please share it with them, and we really appreciate the new listeners.
And if you're interested in being a guest reviewer, reach out to us, and maybe we can work something out.
Yeah, for sure.
info@talesfromthebridge.com, or find us on Instagram or Facebook.
Yep. It's the best way to do it. All right. We
Awesome.
look forward to hearing from you, and stay tuned for more from the bridge.
Clear the bridge.